Welcome to Laid Back Law with your favorite lawyers from around the interwebs, discussing the most pressing of topics every Friday at noon.
All right, we are here and online. We got Nate hiding from the stage, but he truly is here as well. And just for a little bit of memories, a lot of people don't know this, but Nate and I, we actually have a channel that's kind of defunct. We haven't done anything on there forever, but with everybody copying out and things, this is going to be Nate and Eric taking over, almost the return of Nate and Eric. Here's the intro to the old Nate and Eric channel, and that is right here.
Brother, this is Mother Country! There it is.
Sorry, I have to have that. I hope everybody's watching.
You know, Eric Hunley has the whole monopoly. I don't know who that son of a bitch thinks he is, that he's got this whole monopoly on getting panels of lawyers together.
What is a woman? Well, a woman can be anything. Well, okay, squat. You're squat, okay?
If I was there and giving those jokes, if he slapped me, you know, this guy's worth $100 million, I'd have fell out like a bitch. Oh my God.
Nate's a flopper.
Baby, he hurt me. My jaws hurt. My pockets is hurt now because he slapped me. Yeah. He slapped me like a bitch.
Yeah, that's true. This is a woman. Yeah. My woman's bigger than your woman. All right, we're bringing back some memories.
Yeah, that was hilarious. It was like, what?
We even got the Nick and Joe. Anyway, there were some pretty good times on that. Not going to rule out we probably will be doing some things in the future. Just we haven't exactly locked into what the exact thing or not is, but those who are tuning into locals, there was something wrong with the RTMP connection. I just fixed that while that was going on. Hopefully people who are on locals are seeing this now. I apologize for the delay, but welcome to technology and welcome to multi-streaming. all kinds of fun. So now, in the spirit of preparation,
Yes,
we do actually have some stories planned for the day. One of them is a continuation of last week, and it's an interesting one because it's Rajah Jackson, and the overall question is, why the hell hasn't this guy been arrested yet?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like whenever you beat someone half to death on camera and it's for the world to see, I'm just like, that's an easy arrest. Matter of fact, it's like a bar fight, right? You go into a bar, you have a fight, cops show up, you gotta go, right? It's shocking. Some people are saying it's privilege because of skin color, which is kind of shocking to say because before it was always privilege the other way, but now black guy beats the white guy, it's privilege that way. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? Why he hasn't been arrested?
I'm not sure. I don't know. It might have been Ron who was saying it, and maybe it stands, correct to right now. But he's saying that it's a prejudice not of skin color, but a prejudice of celebrity.
Pockets.
Like it's LA specifically, and LA doesn't like to screw with the arts too much. And even though that's more sports than arts, or I don't even know what it is. What would you call WWE? Is that an art or a sport? Because it's kind of both. It's performance art in a way.
Yeah, it's what's called sports entertainment. So sports entertainment is scripted sporting events. So it's supposed to look real, but it's actually fake. So in other words, they're really considered paid actors. So it's essentially stuntmen who act. So they're acting stuntmen.
All right, fair enough. And Sue Miller, that's a good question. Has the victim made a complaint? That's a good question. I know that he doesn't have to.
Yeah,
but it could factor in a little. I don't know.
Well, in researching the story, because to arrest someone, you just need probable cause. And probable cause is, I believe you committed a crime, and there's clear evidence that a crime was committed. So I agree. So I essentially, it's just like I like to give the example of someone saying like a Fabergé egg was stolen from a museum.
Okay.
And then you see a guy who's walking down the street, looks in the dumpster and sees a Fabergé egg. He picks it up and starts walking with it.
Mm-hmm.
Police see him with the Fabergé egg. They can arrest him because a crime has been committed. That egg was stolen. But they, at that moment in time, don't know that that's not the person who stole the egg, right? The presumption would be if you're in possession of stolen property, you're the one who stole it. Now, they could clear it up later, but probable cause is that low where you can just say, okay, based on the facts and circumstances in front of me, you have the stolen property, and for us, it's more likely that you're the one who committed that crime. So it's a very low standard. So in this particular case...
Now, hold on. That's probable cause, right?
Probable cause, not for conviction, just to arrest.
No. But then there's reasonable suspicion, which we should probably get into, which would give you a reason to talk to the person to begin with, right?
Yeah, that's the investigation. You can talk, you can stop, you can pat down, but you can't arrest. You can't arrest on reasonable suspicion.
Okay.
So
I just wanted to cover it because there's another.
So right now we're actually talking about an arrest. So now the reason why I think there may be some issues with the arrest is there is a technical legal issue that comes to play. And because, so the way I'm thinking about it, so let me separate from the way I'm thinking about it, where I think legally the way they're thinking about it. So the way I'm thinking about it is that we all know professional wrestling is fake. It's sports entertainment, right? He knows, Raja knows that wrestling is fake.
Well,
so when you
apparently not.
Yeah, apparently not. But he says he knew it was fake. Like when he's talking to the crowd, getting hyped up, he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna hit him for real. I know it. I know it's fake."
I would find that making him look worse if he knew it was fake. He's beating him down. That was a beat down. That was a beat fake.
So, but I think the issue. So for me, you're at a wrestling event. You know everything is fake, and you go in there and start hitting people for real, right? That wasn't part of the plan. That wasn't nobody expected that. You've now committed a crime, right? That's assault. In California is actually known as battery. So you're going away. But I think the problem that comes up in this context is that you can assault, like I can give you permission to hit me, right? I can give you permission, like if we're doing a planned event, and you can have permission to do these things. So I'm assuming what's going on now is
does that permission run out though upon being unconscious? Because what I'm saying is that you give me permission to hit you, I hit you, okay? Now, if you're still conscious, then we've got an agreement going. But if you're unconscious and I keep hitting, well, you no longer are able to consent at this point. Am I wrong in this interpretation?
No, you're 100% right. And so I 100% agree with you. I don't think anyone consented to that type of beating. But I'm saying, so in that realm, everything I'm saying is just legally why there may not be an arrest, but we all know what's going on. He should have obviously been arrested that night. I don't know, it's just the cops, and you're in California, we're defunding the police and all that. So it's a whole different animal out there. But in terms of the consent part, you're at this wrestling event, and allegedly Raja was told by the promoters that part of the show was this beatdown, right? We want you to do this, and this and by telling him we want you to do this beatdown, and that is part of the performance and part of the show, and that kind of everybody knows. Well, if that's the case, then police could have the argument, well, we may not have probable cause because this was all planned and it just went out of control. It's kind of like at a boxing event and someone is beaten after beaten up, continues to be beaten, and it was like something goes wrong, or maybe they even die. So you could have that aspect of it. And I think the evidence of that is, I think we have the video played up where there are 2 points where the people who were there on the scene claim that Raja was told. Once one person who was working at the event told Raja to hit Psycho Stu for
when you run out on his shit, you fucking give him his receipt.
That's it. So now for everybody who doesn't know wrestling terminology, receipt is I hit you for real. You hit me, you may slap me in the face or something like that by accident and hurt me, and then I give you a receipt, which is a response to that incident. And it's only a one-time hit. It's not I'm trying to kill you. It's just a one-time hit. So and now you're talking, and now we also have to understand too, Raja is not a wrestler. He's not a pro wrestler. This is the first time he's doing this kind of wrestling event thing. So the argument is that the promoters told him to do this. He went overboard. But now, is it really criminal or civil? Civil, I think he's dead. But they're trying to figure out, is it criminal because this was this kind of entertainment event? And is this like a fight in a hockey rink?
Mhm.
Or is this like a fight in a bar? And I think that's what they're struggling with. So let's play the clip.
Hold on.
I'm being told this stuff.
Even your argument about the fight in a hockey rink.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that goes on. A lot of people are entertained by it, but again, I've never seen somebody beaten into unconsciousness and they keep slugging.
Yeah.
Again, it's like I don't know of any parameter to show this. So I'll go ahead and put well, sorry.
No, I said I agree with you 100%.
All right, let's go see.
When you run in on his shit, you fucking give him his receipt. Remember what a receipt is? Give him that receipt, bro. Tag his shit. If you got a problem with it, I'll run out there.
A few moments later.
Just so you know, somebody pulled him aside after and then says to him, and you can fucking get this validated as well. Pulled him aside, some jabroni from the fucking goddamn bullshit production team comes up to him and says, no, don't just throw one punch. Fucking slam him and keep hitting him until we come in there and pull you off. Now, who the fuck set that up?
So in that context, if that's true, then you kind of have the blame. Then could the blame be on the guy who was supposed to jump in and stop him from punching him?
But you see,
that's I think with their now again, I think all that's bullshit. But I think that's what the police are struggling with, if you know what I mean.
Well, the only struggle, in my opinion, should be, okay, do we arrest them as well?
Yeah,
I mean, in fairness, come on. It's like, Nate, go beat up Joe Smith. Okay, and then you do it. Unless I pay you or give you some kind of incentive, like it's a contract. Oh, maybe that could be part of it too. It was Raja getting paid? Did he see as part of a contract? But either way, if you did it like in a contract hit, you would be prosecuted. I would be prosecuted. We'd just be arguing over sentencing, correct?
Yes, because that's my understanding too, is that even if everything they're saying is true, right? Even if everything he's saying is true, just like with your contract killer analysis, if I tell you to go kill somebody, you go do it, guess what? That person's going to jail and I'm going to jail because I can't tell you to do something that's blatantly illegal like that. So
yeah,
I don't know what I honestly don't believe the police or authorities have any excuse why he's not arrested. But it's Hollywood, so you know what's up with Hollywood. It's who knows.
I just don't think they want to. I mean, that's the bottom line. They don't want to deal with it, and they're hoping it goes away.
But that's BS, though.
I agree.
That's just so BS because this kid obviously has a problem and obviously should be locked up. Now, I think he should be. It's aggravated assault because he is a trained MMA fighter and all that stuff. So, but
the only mitigating factors, and I want to throw it in there. Somebody pointed out last week that he was recovering from a concussion, and it's not a complete defense per se. But if you're not in control of your actions, that could be a factor in going out. But the bottom line is he should still be arrested. And by the way, just because we're saying, hasn't he been arrested and charged? Well, arrested, charged, he'd be out the next damn day. I'm sure they come up with bail. So we're not saying that he would necessarily even be off the street, but there should at least be an action taken to where the public can go, okay, he did something, he was arrested, and then, it's going to go to court and you're going to have to settle it all out. Could that be the holdup? Do they need well, no, they don't need the DA for an arrest, right?
You don't need the DA for an arrest, though. But the DA can tell you, hold off on this arrest until we get more evidence, or we want to make it because don't forget, a lot of people,
which I'm sure is happening, right? It's probably the DA driving that.
It could be, because I would say this as a cop on the street, that's an easy arrest, right? This should have been arrested that night. I think the DA could be saying, well, hold off, because there's a time when you arrest somebody and you start prosecution, there's a ticking clock, and it's called the it's called a speedy trial clock.
Yeah.
We used to call it 30-30 in New York. So the speedy trial clock ticks. So you have usually for felonies 180 days. So they may not want to run out that clock because you have a right to a speedy trial. But so I'm thinking that's what they it's some.
There's an example of
that. Like that. I've had cases like that where I've had easy arrests when we said we're going to hold it. We know the person's there. He's not going anywhere. We know, so we're going to hold off on the arrest to give ourselves more time to get evidence, and then we make the arrest later. At some
Well,
other time.
actually, you know what? There's an example of that we've covered, and that's the Rust shooting.
Yes.
Alec Baldwin, to the shock of everyone, Alec Baldwin and Hannah Gutierrez, whatever, they dropped the charges on Alec Baldwin while they were testing things through the FBI, and you pointed out to me that was to stop the clock. So when they dropped the charges and went through all the testing, they then refiled the charges that started the clock back up again, minus those days before they dropped the charges. Is this a similar principle?
I think so. I think that could be the same. You can have that happen, but don't forget, every state has different ways of doing it. So I'm thinking some states may say, hey, we'll allow you like some states, the clock just continues to run, right? When you start. Some states, they'll allow you to stop the clock and restart. So I think it really depends locally. I'm not sure what it is in California, but in New Mexico for sure, that's why they dismissed it, because you'll hear dismissal with prejudice or without prejudice, and without prejudice, then we can bring them back. So.
Okay, I've got this super chat here, and thank you very much, Elfpire Eva. And by the way, folks, I don't know if you know this, but if you want to help out your creators, no tax on tips apparently applies to super chats now. So hooray, that's a nice deal and very cool. So right now it appears that YouTube creators or whoever, the only tax we have to pay is to YouTube.
That's
and
true,
Apple if you're doing it on your iPhone, or Google twice over if you're doing it on Android. You get to pay them twice, one with YouTube, one with Android. But anyway, still, whatever remainder is, at least the feds aren't dipping in, so it does help us a lot. Elfpire wants to know, what about California Penal Code 206, torture? I don't think that would be considered torture.
No, I don't think you have torture here. I think you possibly could get attempted murder because of his past training and knowledge and things of that nature, where you can say it was to that level. I don't think you need to even bring training into it to say attempted murder. Again, somebody is down. I don't have to be trained to keep hitting them, and eventually, no matter, even if you're a 90-pound weakling or whatever, if you keep hitting somebody while they're down, eventually lights out for real. Well, I 1000% agree with that. But what I'm saying is that it's because, don't forget, you got to sell this to a jury. So you're sure. The package here that you would sell is, this is a professional MMA fighter who's trained the tape. Yeah, who's trained to do whatever to these people. So that's what I think is going to is that's the exacerbation factor. But I think you also have what's going on as aggravated assault. So that's if I beat you up with a gun or something like that, right? It's the assault is aggravated factor. Sure, I can go with that. And I think the aggravating factor here, which gets you a lot more time, is the training. So let's say, for instance, you get in a fight with a boxer and the boxer beats you up. Because they are licensed and because they have that training, that they'll be held to a higher standard than someone who doesn't have that training. Well, there have been cases on that, haven't there? Like special forces people or SEALs or whatever that are treated as lethal weapons because they're so well trained, Rambo defense or whatever. Yeah, the registered hands situation. Yeah. So, and I think that's what Raja has to start considering now, that his that because of that training, it does give him criminal liability. But I'll also make a easy point. The civil liability here is through the roof. Stu is getting paid from the. This has to be the easiest trial on the planet, dude. Just play the damn video. Yeah, that's it. And all those witnesses, they told him to do it. Yeah, it's going to be so. I would every time I just answer, they told him to do that. Here, let's play it again. I mean, if I was a prosecutor, they would probably, I'm not a lawyer, folks, but the judge would be like, okay, Eric, enough with your damn video. They've seen it. Because every time I would answer, I say, excuse me, can we look at this again? Excuse me, can we look at this again? Because you don't need to do that much more. It's like, here's my opening statement. Here's the video. Here's every witness. Well, what would you say is happening there? And then my closing argument would be the video. I mean, look at it. Like, what else do you want? It is pretty damning, especially because it's full context too. Like, there's a lot of them where it's like, it'll cut on the camera, like right at the point that the punching's happening, right? But no, we have him by himself in the ring with other people
somebody running in. So you had the full context of the guy running into the ring, grabbing him, pile driving him, and then beating the hell out of him until he's finally. You have actually the entire incident, the entire interaction. You don't always have that on video.
No, you don't. But I will say though, even with all of with the whole thing being on video, I think the biggest issue, I think criminally he should be done, but I think civilly in a civil trial, there's no trial here. It's just go to settlement, especially if number one, he's untrained in pro wrestling. He doesn't know what he's doing. You're giving him all these industry terms like receipts and this. You got people saying we told him to hit him for real until we pull you off him, and we pulled him off too late. So Roger's gonna be like, they pulled me off too late, told me to keep hitting him. I thought it was all part of the show, but then he's gonna talk about obviously the responses. But you're a trained MMA fighter. After hitting somebody more than once, you could probably kill them, right? It's not, you're not an idiot. So I think that's where it gets messy. But I think liability,
the civil trial,
the promoter is done. The promotion is done. They're paying. AJ Mana may have to pay. So
as a matter of fact, okay, the civil I think is where it gets more interesting. And I am going to pitch something. I did an interview yesterday with John Barelick over the Station nightclub fire, which killed 100 people, and over 300 were either killed or injured, all told. And one of the questions was, okay, if you have hundreds of people who are harmed, where do you get the money? And they managed to pull out $176 million out of a client, out of a defendant, the band, who had declared bankruptcy right beforehand. And the band wasn't even Great White. It was Jack Russell's Great White. They had $1 million insurance. So it's like, okay, 175 million to go. And then you have the club, another $1 million. So that's 2 million. Now, when you have 100 plus people, that sums it up. Now, where I'm going with this long-winded bit, and everybody check out the interview. It's very good. It's on Eric Hunley. I think you'll enjoy it. But here, it's great because, okay, Raja probably has no money. So you're going to want to look around. Who has the pockets and who can we tap? So I would think that they will tap, obviously, the guy who told him, hey, get a receipt. How about the promoter? I would go after the referee, and not only the referee, but the organization that the referee might work for, because are there training mishaps? Why was the referee slow to that? And as a lawyer, am I right on that, Nate, that you're going to be looking around saying, whose pockets can I tap? Who can I actually get to?
I'm tapping everybody. AJ Mana, who I think is being scapegoated here. AJ Mana, obviously, he's got to be in a lawsuit, right? He told me to give him a receipt. I don't know what a receipt is. I'm a dummy, blah, blah, blah. So he's done. Raja's father's a millionaire. He's a professional MMA fighter, so he's got potential earnings out of wazoo. You hit him for a judgment and let him pay you overtime, right? If he still want to continue the MMA fight, which who knows if that's going to happen. Obviously, the promotion,
he could lose his license over this, right?
He could, but I'm saying, but just in case, right? Why not, right? Why not? He can win the lottery. The next person I'm going to hit, obviously, now for the referee and the other wrestlers, they would probably be indemnified since they're working at the time for the promotion. So even though they'll be implicated in all this, the promotion would have to cover them. So the promotion, to even have that event, you have the insurance. They have to have insurance and all this stuff. So their insurance is going to take a monster hit. And then I would even the venue.
Well, when you point out the other wrestlers, there's different ones. The ones in the ring that were pulling him off, I think, are obviously in the clear. They were trying to stop it. There was no encouragement. But the ones who were setting up the quote narrative, maybe there'd be a tiny bit of liability if you'd reached hard.
So the people who I think from the other wrestlers is the referee, possibly, right? But if the referee was told that to not stop it, but someone else would come in and stop it, that could kind of get him, because he's working, right? I'm working. They told me this is what was going on. So then the other wrestlers who were supposed to jump in, if they didn't jump in time, then you can get some liability. Well, they were supposed to jump in, but they didn't come in fast enough and that type of thing. But sure. I think no matter what happens, the wrestling promotion, Psycho Stu should own the wrestling promotion after this. There's no question he's going to get paid. And I think their insurance, he's going to kill their insurance. So.
Well, and by the way, the people were asking, is a good question. How is he doing? Last I found, because I did look up.
He's at a hospital.
Okay, but he does have problems.
Yes.
He was very seriously injured, and has very real issues.
Oh, yeah.
And he already is a vet with PTSD and everything else. So, by the way, I'm dropping a link in the chat about the Station Nightclub Fire interview I did if anybody wants to check it out. But yeah, it's bad times for him, and I just wish him the best recovery of all. I do think that he took some real damage for sure.
Oh yeah.
All right,
So now-
so what are we going to now? I think we've got the Raja wrap up here.
Yeah, I think people know what's up with that. You want to go to the Chicago? You want to talk about Chicago, or should we talk about the Epstein stuff?
I don't know, chat. What do we want to talk about? Type fast, because I'm uncertain which way we want to go.
We got Epstein, Chicago.
We got the Epstein missing minute and Chicago's one. What did we actually advertise?
Transgender ban.
Oh, transgender ban. Yeah, let's see.
Everybody
Chicago,
Chicago.
Okay,
Epstein
we're going
stuff.
back and forth. Chicago, Epstein, Chicago. No other people. No, K-Jab. No other people. You were stuck with Nate and me. And
Chicago.
Okay, it looks like Chicago's starting to win out.
All right.
Well, this is a good one.
So let me just set this up. But before we get into the first part about Chicago, is that obviously Trump is trying to send in the National Guard, and there's issues with that. But I want to first start with Chicago's police shortage issue. So the city of Chicago, obviously, they're with the defund the police piece. They were also with the whole let's reimagine crime, like send in the social workers and all that stuff. Remember all that? So obviously
all the stupid stuff.
Yeah,
this is a BLM hangover, a lot of it. Or George Floyd, the Summer of Love.
Yeah. So yes. So Chicago is down 2,000 officers. And obviously that's had an effect on crime. So it's
you know what, Nate? I apologize. I want to take care of the super chat that I just see here. While we're not too far out of Raja. Anyone saying PC 206 should look maybe at California PC 203 Mayhem?
Yes, he is. I did look that up. It's possible. So, but I think Mayhem is like, I do think their Mayhem charge may be possible. I had it listed here, but we'll see. We'll see what the police come through. Yeah, we'll see what the police comes through with.
All right, back to Chicago and shootings. No.
So obviously over the weekend, like Eric just had up, there was like there were so many shootings. But what I do,
wounded, 9 killed.
Yeah, but going back to the police shortage. So I want to show you Chicago begging for police officers, right? They 2,000 down. And then I want you to hear when the Chicago mayor was asked about more policing, what his response to that question was.
3 years ago, Chicago police had 13,353 sworn officers, a recent peak. Staffing was still strong going into the pandemic, then began to plunge, reaching a low of 11,611 officers last August. Since then, the city has added about 120 more.
The resignations, that's the number that's key.
A deeper dive into the departures show 35% of Chicago cops who quit the department last year resigned.
Men and women of CPD are putting in work, yet the reality, the department is down a significant number of sworn officers.
We are down. We're down close to 2,000 officers.
All right.
So the Chicago
I wonder
PD,
why. Maybe because they don't feel welcome. Maybe they don't feel like the government has their back. I mean, why would the cops just say, you know what, screw this, not worth it? I mean, a lot of people who are cops, they're trained to be cops. They like being a cop. And what do you want to bet that a lot of people who resign being cops are cops elsewhere?
Yeah, I'm assuming those 35 resignations is because Chicago is a joke. So obviously they are still in law enforcement. They just probably went to do law enforcement in other places because, you know, it's not a good thing to be a cop in Chicago, unfortunately. You know, for those of the people who are there, you know, it's going to be hard for people, shit pay and all that. It's just going to be hard for anybody that want to work there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But so here is on the back end. Here's the mayor of Chicago. Let me add this to the stage. So here is the mayor of Chicago. Move this one and add this one. Here is the mayor of Chicago being asked. Now, I want you to, we need to be specific here. he's on Morning Joe, and Morning Joe is a liberal lion left-wing show.
Yeah. He's definitely anti-Trump and everything. Yes, he is on the Chicago mayor's side politically and mentally in most ways, I'm sure.
So just so we're all clear, what we're going to do is that the Chicago mayor is going to be asked directly. Now, some people get this clip confused because they'll say, well, no, of course he doesn't want federal troops. But Morning Joe is going to ask specifically, what if the federal government gave you funding for 5,000 cops? How would you accept that? Right. So we're not talking about giving you troops, giving you the $5,000 money for 5,000 extra cops to help you with crime. And listen to his response. Listen to what he says.
So let me ask you, Mr. Mayor, those all sound like great programs. I'm curious. Would you also like to get federal funding to help put 5,000 more cops on the street in Chicago? Would that help drive down crime?
Well, look, policing by itself is not the full strategy.
No, I understand that. You've talked about the other things you want, and I said those are good and important programs, but I'm asking also, would 5,000 more police officers on the street in Chicago be helpful to go along with all of those social programs that a lot of cities are engaging in and having success with?
Well, look, here's the best way I can put it, Joe, is that in the 90s when I was in high school, we had 3,000 more police officers and we had 900 people being murdered every single year in Chicago. It's just not policing alone. Of course, we want more detectives.
I know it's not policing alone, but I know it's not policing alone. You've told me everything else you want. I'm curious, and this does come down to an ideological difference between people. Do you believe that the streets of Chicago would be safer if there were more uniformed police officers on the streets of Chicago?
I'm stopping it here, right? I'm stopping it. So he went from, will they help reduce crime? Now it's just like, will they just help make Chicago safer? Just 5,000 extra police officers. Give you the money funding. Now, the obvious answer, chat. What's the answer? You're down 2,000 officers. Feds give you money so you can pay for 5,000 more officers. Would that at least help? We all know the answer to that. But let's see if the mayor of Chicago, the elected mayor of Chicago, can just make that. Of course it will, Joe. But, we'll see what happens. He could have shut Joe up there saying yes. But let's see what he says.
I believe the city of Chicago and cities across America would be safer if we actually had, affordable housing. Look,
okay,
I'm not saying
that's not the question I asked. My question is, and I just need a yes or a no. Do you believe the streets of Chicago would be safer if you got all of those other extraordinary programs put back into place, which do have a history of being successful, if that's complemented by having 5,000 more cops on the streets of Chicago?
I don't believe that we should narrow it down to just police officers, Joe, is what I'm saying. That is an antiquated approach. I'm saying we've invested in detectives.
Mr. Mayor, are you hearing what I'm saying? I'm agreeing with you that all of these other social programs are extraordinarily important. I just need a yes or a no, and then this will be the last time I ask. If you get all of those other social programs that 800 million that New York City does, Los Angeles, other people do with great success, would an additional 5,000 cops on the streets in Chicago help complement those programs to make Chicago safer?
What do you think he's going to say? That's a softball of question I would give right here.
Well, he's trying to take out every possible conditional in the world. The only thing he forgot to say is, it's not your money. It's free money and free cops. Can they give you free cops?
Yeah, and we're going to do everything else you want to do. And here's free money, free cops. What can you say? Can you at least say yes? It would help, not even reduce crime, because he's dropped the whole reduce crime. Just help. That's it. Let's see what he says.
Look, we are working hard to make sure that our police department is fully supported. I don't believe that just simply putting out an arbitrary number around police officers is the answer. What I'm saying is policing and affordable housing. It's policing and mental and behavioral health care services. It's policing and youth.
And he's giving you the policing, you dumb twat.
Yes, but he can't say. But you know why he can't say yes? Because he's a pathetic moron who can't just say yes to the. Of course, 5,000 extra police. We're down. She should have said we're down 2,000. Of course, 5,000 is going to help.
All right,
and
Nick,
with all these other programs.
I will tell you why he's saying this.
All right, talk.
And this is my opinion, but I was doing some research on the guy who shot George McGovern or whatever, and there was an undercover guy who was in the SDS that was the student group. They caused a lot of violence and things like that in the late 60s, early 70s. Anyway, he pointed out, how do you capture a tiger? You're like, what? Where are you going with this? Okay. So in India, when they want to capture tigers, what they will do is they will give, the natives like pots and pans. This is back in 70s. This is talked about. Pots, pans, all these noisemakers and things like that, right? And they go out in the jungle and just make, holy hell, all kinds of racket. Just racket, and the tigers just going bonkers because their territories invaded, all this noise, they can't hunt, all the praise, whatever. And they literally walk into a cage where it's quiet. Now, what is the purpose here? Well, the purpose is the more crime he has, the more afraid people are, and the more he can crack down on what he is. This is the same guy who wants to take over failed grocery stores in Chicago and turn them into government-run grocery stores. Yes. So in terms of in a long-term strategy, it actually makes sense. Anytime somebody is dumb or ridiculous, I'm always trying to think, is there another strategy possibly? Is there something else going on? And this guy is pretty much a Marxist.
Yeah.
And
I think
he wants this kind of control. So the more scary it is, the more they have to go to daddy. And he can play daddy. Just a thought.
Like the thing that upsets me about this is that, so over the weekend, over the Labor Day weekend, we all heard, right? And was it 9 people shot, 9 people killed, 58 people shot, like some ridiculous numbers. And
52 wounded, 9 killed. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's the older number. Then the new number now, because they had the update, is 50.
Some died. Okay.
Yeah. So some more came in after they were shot. Went to the hospital.
And the wounded, probably some wounded died. And okay.
So it's so what I say about that is that it's so weird, because even with the Trump federal stuff and all this stuff, the people who are dying happen to be Black and brown people. These are young Black men between the ages of 17 and 35, who are being killed en masse in Chicago. And the mayor would rather have them die and have the political win than to have them be helped and stop the killing. And that, I think, is the problem. It's at the point, it's kind of like,
well, what good do they serve him? I'm just I hate to be so cold-blooded, but I'm trying to get in this mayor's cynical mind here. What will serve him better if, let's say, he doesn't care about these people who are getting killed? He's like, they're not voting for me. They're not even voting, probably. And what do I care for? Whereas I can get this political win, and I can get more money into my little programs that I'm scraping off. I hate to say, like Grace says here, but no one hates young Black men more than a politician. Do you think he actually cares? I'm being sincere here, Nate.
It's at a point. I thought he did. But
actions, man.
Like,
never mind words.
Actions. At this point, I would have to agree with you. I would have, one down, one. It's wild, because he spent $600 million on the migrants, right? You could have did that and helped the cops and just meant them invested $600 million into the crime production. But no, they essentially threw $600 away on migrants, and now they're $1.1 billion in the hole. Like it's a total disaster. And I agree with you. It's like actions speak louder than words, and I believe the actions of the Democrats now, just with this whole, it's okay that all these Black people are shot and killed and die. It's a horror show. It's a horror show.
Well, Nate, the great and powerful Joseph Stalin, I think, once said that a child being killed is a tragedy, but thousands are statistic. Just a thought.
Yeah. It is a tragedy, but that's the good mayor of Chicago. But do you know, it's funny because obviously Trump wants to send in the National Guard to help with Chicago and that type of thing. So you know, there's going to be a lot of backlash. I do want to make the distinction before we get into that issue is that Chicago is different than Washington because Washington D.C. is federal. It's federal land. It's just like being in the White House, right? The federal government should do whatever they have to do to contain crime in Washington D.C. It's their spot, right? The people in Washington aren't in, let's say, Maryland, right? But if you go to when you go to another state like Chicago and you go into Illinois, then I'm extremely hesitant to allow the federal government to run roughshod and just send in troops whenever they feel like things are going.
I'm completely hesitant. I can think of this is going to be probably controversial, but we talked about it last week on America's Untold Stories. I'm of the mindset that we don't need to be sending the feds into every damn city that has problems. Washington, D.C. is federal property. It is the seat of the government of the country. And technically, it's kind of a no man's land anyway. There's a question about, representation, etc. So that is federal. That's where the White House lives. Everything lives. The federal can go there, beef up the security. Use that as an example. And then, I don't know if he'll follow through, but as an example, Gavin Newsom is saying, stay out of California. I'm sending down my staties to take over. Perfect. I like that. Encourage the states to step in and clean up their own mess. I personally, in Virginia, and you're now in Texas, do you want your federal tax dollars from Texas and my federal tax dollars from Virginia to pay for Chicago when they vote in this asshole, when they vote in these policies? No, I don't. I hate to be cruel-hearted, but I would much rather see people in North Carolina who get hit with a hurricane get funding, because at least that's an act of God, not an act of incompetence.
Political incompetence. Yeah, but sometimes people need to be saved from themselves. Like I'm kind of, if you're telling me 1,000 people are dying in Chicago and we can send them money to help stop that, it's simply just like a big hurricane, right? I don't want 1,000. That's why we're sending the troops in, to help for the hurricane. So I do understand that.
Yeah, not when you have a mayor who say, please don't.
But then on the back end, you got a mayor that's saying, please don't. Then I think the people have to kind of live with the consequences of their actions at that time. If you got the mayor and governor saying, please don't, then guess what? It's your fault, and good luck to you, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, by the way, we were all celebrating Lori Lightfoot being voted out. They replaced her with somebody worse. So come on.
Yeah,
eventually, voters, please take responsibility for who you vote in, please.
Yeah. It's tough because I want to help, but I do understand. Like I am concerned about the federal government overreach, right? And
how does Chicago deserve it more than, say, Memphis? Okay, you looked it up earlier, because I think per capita is a more relevant statistic than the actual numbers. So yeah, a lot of people died in Chicago, but the number of people per capita makes Chicago slightly less dangerous than Memphis. So why can't Memphis get help? And then when we talk about that, well, maybe Little Rock has a problem, and then we have somebody else that has a problem, and now we get into this roundabout. Who do we actually help?
So these are the numbers. I think these are 2023 though. So they're not the most.
Well, okay, let's say as if it was.
Yes,
yeah.
But so we're talking about now. If you sort this list, this is a list of murders for major cities in homicide rates in large metro areas. These are now you see county here because these are counties that have over 1 million residents. Sure. So you're looking at homicides per 100,000 people. So if you do it just based on per capita, that means for every 100,000 people, 40 people are murdered, and that's in Memphis. So Memphis is number 1, St. Louis is number 2, Baltimore is number 3, and you go down this list. Virginia Beach, for instance, is on this list. Now, but when you look at total homicide,
what's Virginia Beach? I can't see it from my screen.
Sorry. Virginia Beach right here is 26.9.
Wow.
But I think that's 100,000 people because they only had 26. So 100,000 people, 26. That gives you your 100,000. That seems
Well,
like
it doesn't matter. It's per capita, and if we get into
Yeah.
per capita, you are more likely to die in Virginia Beach than in Philadelphia, according to that chart. Or what?
Yes.
What is the next
And-
place?
Yeah, out of 100,000 people, which is Philadelphia, you're right, or Memphis. Now, if you do it by total homicides, you'll see the difference, because if we do it by total homicides, Chicago raises to number one. And let me change the view this way. Chicago goes to number one. And
by the way, the population of Virginia Beach, I just looked up, is just over 450,000.
okay.
So there's plenty of people there.
Yeah.
I mean, I live in the area, dude. I promise you, if you rolled all these cities together, it's a top 10 in the nation.
Okay. But so when you do this, Chicago, Cook County, because they do it by the county per 100,000, they only have 50 for every 100,000 people, only 15 get killed. So, but they had 800 murders.
Mhm.
So if you compare it to Memphis, which is on the list here, Memphis is only had 372 murders. So Eric, I do agree with Eric. If you're in Memphis, it's more likely you're going to be killed, right? You're more likely going to have a problem. But in terms of sheer numbers, you'll essentially have twice as many people dying in Chicago. So do you deal with the Chicago problem first because you got twice as many deaths, or do you go deal with the Memphis problem because they have a higher rate of murder? You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the battle. You know, who do you attack first?
I'm always going to lean
or the
towards.
rates?
I'm always going to lean towards rate, unless it's like if it's a small town of 500 people and there's a mass shooting 1 year that takes place and it kills 30, then that skews the numbers. But when you're talking about populous cities, say 100,000 or more, that's a good cutoff. And then you just say how many people die in that number. Hey, that's a basic breakdown of danger.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely agree. I definitely agree. It's the danger, and the danger is one thing, but I think
now,
I can see
actually, you know what,
ways.
Nate? We can go further. Actually, we can go even further because I just thought about it. If you could break this down by zip code, that would probably be the most effective. By rate and zip code, because the per capita can even be a problem. If, like, let's say that you're talking about Chicago, but all of the crimes take place within a 1 square mile area, for example.
Yeah. So
that's going to really, now that starts to skew it another way, whereas another place is 10 square miles or whatever. So you're right. You can cut it up a little bit in different ways, but I guess I want to know what is the actual, figuring out the density of it. And that is the overall question.
Yes. One thing I will also I personally want to add is that you'll hear the Democrats say this a lot. Democrats will say something like, "Hey, the crime in the red states are out of control. There's crime in red states, right?"
Yeah, the blue cities and the red states are out of control.
But when you look at it, like for instance, Louisiana is one they bring up all the time, right? The homicide rate in Louisiana is extremely high. It's higher than New York,
New
Chicago,
Orleans, and Baton Rouge are probably very bad, and they're both Democrat-run cities.
But when you do it by county, everyone is run by a Democrat, the Democrats. So even in those red places, so what the Democrats do, they'll say, "Hey, the crime is so much higher in red states. Go focus in on red states." But then when you peel that layer, like for instance, and look at the crime. I'll go back to the crime chart, which I think has a great thing. Let's look at, for instance, Houston. It's extremely red in Texas, but Houston
is blue as can be.
Yeah,
you're not going to call Jasmine or Dallas too. Jasmine Crockett. No, come on.
Yes, Dallas. But that's what I'm talking about. All these kind of blue places are where the crimes are. So when you hear that, so that spin upsets me, because even like CBS does it. CBS is spinning it. So and I think people don't realize that if Democrats really wanted to address the problem, they would stop with this trying to make it seem like it's Republican places that have this problem. We know why, and we know why places where Democrats have problems. Like for instance, in New Orleans, the DA, who was a woke DA, he got carjacked with his mom, and he still refuses to prosecute certain juveniles who are 17 for violent crimes. He still refuses to, a lot of prosecutors. He says he refuses, and he's with this. I want to let everybody out of jail. I'm going to give people second chances, and they get second chances and do exactly what they need, what they do. So I say this. I think, unfortunately, the crime problem has become political, but I think it's the people it hurts. And it's so funny because I was telling somebody else this. I was like, it's funny. Trump hates black people so much that he's sending troops into Washington, D.C. to save black people, because 90% of the people getting killed are black. He wants to send National Guard to Chicago to save black people, right? There's not a crisis of white people dying in Chicago. It's black people, right? The ones in New York. Who's the majority of people dying in New York? Who's the majority of people dying in Houston? It's all black people. So for him to be a racist in this way, then I don't know how you square that circle, right? I want to go save all these black people, but I'm so racist that I could just let them die.
What's frustrating to me is crime. To me, is the one issue that should be nonpartisan. Crime and health. And weather. I'll throw that in too, right? Like a hurricane doesn't pick by political parties.
No.
Cancer doesn't seem to give a damn what your political party is. And crime, it shouldn't matter. I don't want to be carjacked. I don't want to be robbed. And I don't want my opposite political. I don't want anybody to be carjacked or robbed. I don't think this is a very difficult question. And the fact that people want to politicize it is irritating, because can we start just acknowledging the truth? Because you can't solve anything without acknowledging the truth to begin with. Like, there are areas, and it's not only in Chicago. Somebody was bringing up, it's not just Virginia Beach. That's covering the whole area, which is Portsmouth, Norfolk. Well, there are areas of Virginia Beach that are among the, richest, the super high dollar properties. And then there are areas that I will not want to be at after, 9 o'clock at night or whatever. And it's all over the area, not just Virginia Beach, but also Norfolk, also Hampton. Everybody, let's be honest. There's a good part of town and there are bad parts of town almost everywhere, in fairness. Now, we can all agree, though, that crime is bad.
Yes.
And usually, if you have more people who are crime preventers, stoppers, whatever, then you will have less crime in that area. Now, one problem is that I was talking to a couple of cops one time. I was delivering pizza in a very bad crime-ridden area of Norfolk. Ironically, this shows you that times can change too. I was delivering pizza in an area of Norfolk called Ocean View. And it was so bad that I would be standing outside having a cigarette. I smoked back in the 90s. And we would hear pop, 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 and we just casually were walking, kind of leaned on the other side of the pillar in case there were gunshots. And we obviously gave the cops free food in the pizza joint, and they told me that I was an idiot. And I was like, well, what do you mean? They're like, there are two jobs I would never do. I would never deliver pizza, and I would never drive a cab. And I was like, well, what are you talking about? You're cops, you go fight crime and all. And he said, yeah, but we're armed and we don't carry cash. You are asking for trouble.
No.
And then I'm like, well, aren't you here to stop that, stop the crime? And he said, we don't stop crime. We just move it. So the sad part is that a lot of times too, the police president or whatever is not actually even stopping it. It's moving it to another area.
Yeah. Because unfortunately, police are there's kind of two pieces to police. There's the prevention piece, which is the patrol officer on the street, right? The
visibility.
The visibility. But then the second part is like the detectives. Those are the people who are after crime happens, then you kind of respond to it in that way. So those two things have to work together for them to be successful. But I think when it comes to Chicago, I think it all starts with the government policy, right? The local, because when like Democrats make that argument about state versus city, the state has very little control over the local police department. In terms, they can, yes, the state legislature pass laws and the governor can do funding, but it's really the local police are controlled by the mayor, by the police commissioner, right? That's who employs those people. So when you're looking at it that way, the people who are making those decisions on whether to arrest and whether to prosecute are people locally, and those people are feeling the people who have voted them in. And I got to also say this: you got to blame the voters too. They voted these lunatics in, and now we're suffering the lunatic consequences. Right? We hand out Chicago, New Orleans, it's all over the place.
I got a question for you on that, and it's something we've discussed on AUS before. It's an interesting thing. Is there not a built-in problem that the mayor runs the police chief in most cities? So it's like literally the mayor has their own law enforcement wing versus, and I'll give you a counterexample. I kind of like sheriffs because they're elected. So
independent sheriff?
Right. Well, the sheriffs get elected the same way as a mayor gets elected, you know, depending on, where you are. And so the sheriff does have to report directly to the voters versus reporting to somebody else.
Yeah, I personally would rather the voters vote in their local sheriff or the police commissioner. But in cities like New York and most big major cities, they don't do that. What they do is they want to have some semblance of control. So they use like a nationalized system, like the federal government, where the president is the chief law enforcement officer. He hires the attorney general. He hires all these underlings. It's funny because
but you see, that adds the politics to the crime.
That adds the politics to it. Yeah.
Because it's saying, you know what, this does not look good on my watch, Nate, you police commissioner. So I'll tell you what, let's get those stats down. And then you as commissioner, you go, okay, you know what? We're going to say property crimes, don't even bother writing it up if it's under X. And you know what? We'll make these armed robberies or just going to be malicious incidents or blah, 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 blah. And that's why it's so important to follow corpses. I hate to be rude, but if you want to look at all crime stats and really see what's going on, follow the deaths, because it's hard to hide the body. You can always not report a sexual assault. You can always bury that. You can bury robberies. You can bury property crimes. You can even bury carjackings, or you can lower the charges on that and just not report it. But a homicide is difficult. So that's why, if you can, always lean into homicides first, because again, they may try to shade it a little, but it's much harder to shade because you got a body, you got a bullet. How did that bullet get there?
That's what actually prompted people to start looking at DC's crime stats, because like all the crimes were dropping dramatically. Then this year, all the crimes are still dropping, but homicides went up. And they're like, hold on, that doesn't make any sense. If all crimes are dropping, how come the homicides are going up? But that's because you can't really, the dead body here, you can't really maneuver that. So, but as we know, one cop has settled with the city for allegedly fixing crime stats, and they had to suspend one of their commanders for fixing for lowering crime stats to make it seem safer. So obviously, I think that aspect of it, the political aspect of it, I think you just move it once to remove. So, for instance, you vote for a mayor who hires a police chief, but versus having the voters hire the sheriff. But to be honest with you, if that was Chicago, the sheriff may be just as woke. Let's say if we put that, what I'm saying?
It could be, but at least we can vote him out.
He's going to be the sheriff,
right?
Yeah.
And I agree with that. But again, at least though, there's a direct line. Like you take away the incentive of the mayor saying, "Hey, this looks bad on my watch." Yeah, it's like, I don't report to you. And maybe the mayor is doing a good job, what they have. Not Chicago, probably, but elsewhere. And so then the sheriff, it's like, what is going on with your department? We're going to explore you directly.
Yeah. I get it. I don't know. I think it's really the voters having to wake up and say, we need sanity. We need, professionalism. And this mayor's not doing it. And hopefully the sheriff would do it. But one thing I did want to mention, because we talked about this earlier. So, the definition for a mass shooting, generally, right? Is
Three or
if
four were
three
dead.
people were shot in an event altogether, multiple. Now you don't have to actually have people die for a mass shooting. You just have to have multiple people. So if somebody goes and shoots into a crowd, but everybody survives, they shoot 30 people. That would be still considered a mass shooting, even though no one died. So mass
okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Here's the actual definition according to the great Wikipedia.
Mm-hmm.
A mass shooting is a violent crime in which one or more attackers use a firearm to kill or injure multiple individuals in rapid succession.
Exactly. Now, so we just recently had the one in Minnesota, the trans person who went to the school, right? Killed 2 people, injured a whole bunch of people, right?
Yes.
Mass shooting. It's all over every major news out. Mass shooting, mass shooting, mass shooting, mass shooting. Horrible, horrible, horrible.
Yes.
But if I poll the chat, how many mass shootings were in Chicago over the Labor Day weekend that were labeled mass shootings? There were 3. 3 mass shootings where multiple people, we had 2 multiple killing mass shootings and 1 mass shootings where multiple people were injured in rapid succession. Why doesn't the news report those as sensationalized as they report the other ones? Now, I do understand there may be some, they may just chalk it off as gang violence. They might just chalk it off as this.
Right. I think that there's
mass shooting is a mass shooting.
I think there's a mentality of combat, good or bad. Like, a lot of mass shootings are drive-bys with a gang, for example, or whatever. And obviously it's still crime. They need to be locked up. It's horrible. But I think people visualize things differently. And you got to be careful with definitions because people visualize them differently. That, 2 gangs shooting at each other, that's a mass shooting, technically speaking, but it's not the same as somebody going postal, if you will, or a school shooting where I guess, it's almost like it's armed combatants. And again, all of it is crime.
Well,
I think it's just visualization problems.
Well, in the Chicago one was there was a rap artist. He was doing a mixtape thing and somebody got upset and started shooting, right?
Mm-hmm.
That that didn't seem to be attributed to gun violence, but somebody just having an attitude. Now, with that is a mass shooting. So
Sure.
what I think is that I think it's at a point it becomes so commonplace in some areas
Mm-hmm.
that it's kind of like if we reported these mass shootings all the time, we're going to be on the news every night. So it's like, yeah, we had 3 more mass shootings over the weekend. Who cares? That type of thing. I think we've gotten numb to the fact that Chicago has a lot of mass shootings, but a mass shooting in, let's say, Virginia Beach or something like that, that's more rare than it would be in Chicago. Is that fair? So it's kind of like the boy who cried wolf, right?
I think it's who the targets are. I know that sounds awful. Like even in your rap example, a lot of people have associations with gangs and rap music because of the hip hop lifestyle. And I'm not saying it's fair. It's just reality.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about, what the horrible, I hate to say tragedy because it's a crime, with the Catholic school in Minnesota, those are children, for God's sake. Or go back to a postal example. Those are employees. They're people in a workplace or whatever. It's like they're just people doing their thing, versus some people in another area. And I'm not saying it's fair, Nate.
No, I'm not even saying. I'm like, even with that, right? Everything you just said happened in Chicago in one of these mass shootings. These were not people who were in a gang. These were people who were at an event. It was a mass shooting. Children were shot in this event, right? Everything you're saying. But so are we saying that it's the color of the skin of those people who were these children who were killed in Chicago over this weekend, the children who were shot? Or
I think it's the neighborhood of it.
Or it's maybe just been the neighborhood because everything you're saying, this was an event. This wasn't like, now I would agree with you.
Well, hold on. No, I think it's placed. It's placed too, because in fairness, if it was a, for example, there was a black church in South Carolina.
Yes.
Okay. And the victims were black.
But the guy who shot him was white.
He was. Well, we like to think of white people being the mass shooters. Absolutely. That is in our culture as well.
Yeah, I think that's true.
But I think that if there was a black suspect who went in and shot multiple children in a black school or a black church, it would also be treated as a mass shooting, because again, we think church, we think school, we think workplace. I don't know. I think that it's a place, and again, it's not necessarily fair. I think it's just a visualizations on a spectrum, like what people consider worse or not. I mean, the worst of the worst is a school because it's children, and there's not many people more innocent than children. Churches, they're pretty high up there too, because we usually think, hey, these are people who are talking to God and good people and blah blah blah. And then down a little further, workplace. Well, they're just trying to earn money for their family and going to work. Somewhere else where it's like a party, you're like, okay, well, party, there could be some drinking, there could be things going on, there could be some grips between people. Again, I'm not saying it's fair. I think that we've got visualizations, and you're right, we publicize certain ones more than others, and that throws the definition off. But there's a lot of craziness. Like, how many times have you heard about somebody being called a serial killer, and they're really not a serial killer, they're a spree killer?
Yeah, that happens a lot. But that's But in that sense, I wouldn't want to quarrel with the definition in that particular instance. In this particular instance, you had, like you're saying, a party. You've had an event. You've had these things happen, and these mass shootings happen. And to be fair, local media does call them mass shootings, but the national media doesn't pick them up as mass shootings. So, but I think there is a disconnect. And even if you think about it, I remember there were a couple of black people who did commit mass shootings, but those are usually, I usually call them cross-racial mass shootings. Black person shoots white people, black person goes like the one in New Jersey, like that type of thing. But in Chicago, it seems like if you get a black person, no matter what situation, they walk in and shoot a whole bunch of the black people. It's like, we're going to chalk it up to, that's just Chicago, versus this is a mass shooting that should be, on all the nightly news.
No, I agree. And part of it is because, well, you say just Chicago. How many times has it happened in that neighborhood?
It's probably a lot. It's probably a lot.
And people start to get deadened to it, which is horrible. I mean, that's the problem. We're throwing numbers about. We've been doing this the whole time, Nate. We're just throwing numbers about. And every single number we're throwing about has a mother and a father and probably a sibling and something. And it's like every damn one of them is a full life that they've gone through X amount, and we're throwing about as numbers. We're doing it ourselves right now.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It is really a hard question. You're right that we should be clearer with the definitions. Absolutely. And let me see. Somebody, Kingslayer, thank you very much. It's because one is inside a school and can be used to attempt to remove secondary right. Yes, agendas absolutely do come into how things are reported. Oh yes, you are right. If we can,
but also
blame things.
There's been, because again, in Chicago,
some would also argue
they've had this in different places, and not all mass shootings are in schools. We have mass shootings in churches, events. Even then, there was one in a supermarket. There was one at a party, right? So I'm talking about in all the other places we've heard about. So I do think the difference between these two are different. But the next time we have a mass shooting at a parade or something like that, then the question will be valid again. Like, hold on, this is just like these other incidents. Why isn't it? But I do think Eric's point makes sense. I mean, I think we all got back to my original point, which was I think it's just the since it happens so often in this location, it's like you don't want to be running every day, so you just get tired of it.
Well, this person right here, I mean, it's like I can't even imagine this. So, grew up in a bad area. I've been in over 200 mass shootings. Wow. I'd have to say, I hope you could find the funding to move, because that would be. And again, I get it. Not everybody can afford to move, so I'm not saying just move. That's obviously horrible, but holy cow. And I do agree, though. Things get counted when it affects somebody else. And I hate to circle back to the cynical thing I said about the mayor, but again, I don't think the mayor really cares either, Nate. I'm sorry to tell you that.
He's just in it for a check.
Now, but this does talk about some mass shootings that have been covered, and there are Right now, there's people are noticing that a couple of the mass shooters in schools have been trans individuals.
Yes, yes,
And the Justice Department is essentially, I guess, looking at making the purchase of weapon for trans people illegal. And I'm going to give the most controversial take of all time, probably.
So let me just play the opening of Rising,
Okay.
because they have it here. So I'll play this opening from Rising, and so we can just hear what's going on, and then we can then we'll discuss. Hold on, let me just throw it up here. I actually had this ready. I don't know what I did.
I don't know either.
Oh, here it is. Boom. All right. Yeah, but being I hit the wrong button. All
You
right.
run out.
Oh,
That's the wrong one. This one.
Try that one.
That one. There it is. Here we go. So this is Rising. This is their opening about it.
Following the deadly mass shooting on the campus of a Minneapolis Catholic school, the DOJ is reportedly considering some gun restrictions for transgender individuals.
A DOJ spokesperson told the Daily Wire, quote, individuals within the DOJ are reviewing ways to ensure that mentally ill individuals suffering from gender dysphoria are unable to obtain firearms while they are unstable and unwell. The move by the DOJ appears to have support from the MAGA base. Alex Marlow, author and host of The Alex Marlow Show, took to X saying, gun ban for trans is a win-win proposition. We get to watch the Democrats explain why trans need AR-15s and the courts uphold gun rights as inalienable. Or the trans contagion is officially classified as a mental health condition, which it is. Checkmate.
But the proposal unsurprisingly sparked outrage on the left. Ed Krasenstein writes on X, where are all the Second Amendment people now? Does it only apply to some people? Meantime, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz says he plans to call a special session of the legislature to
all right, go ahead and pause. I think
all right, so that's it. So we got
I have to okay. I have to chuckle on that first person because they did call it when they said, and so you'll now have people on the left fighting for gun rights, those same guns that they want to ban. Which is funny. That is kind of
before
funny.
you get into it, Trump is the master, and I mean the master of making the Democrats out to be hypocrites and making them out to he always takes the position of the 90% of the population believes this, and the Democrats are defending 10% of the population who believes this. He's the master, and I think this is one of those issues where they said, "Hey, we can do this," and then watch how they go crazy. But go ahead. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No. I agree on that front, but then here's the controversial take.
Okay.
I don't think they should do it. One, we've got that whole slippery slope, and I know people like to say slippery slope is a fallacy. No, it can be a fallacy, but it is often true. And withholding rights from individuals, I just don't think you're going the right path. Because I can follow up with a transgender argument and say, okay, I do think that there's questions about whether it should be in the DSM-5 or whatever else. But now I could say, okay, well, now I want to have all veterans who suffer PTSD because, you know what, that is a mental condition. Let's remove their weapons too. So this person who served the country, sorry, you can't have weapons either. And while we keep going, I'm going to find somebody else. And I'm going to say, you know what? I think that what you have is a disease. Now let's flip the control of the government. And we can say that somebody, you know, who's overly, quote, patriotic, like, you know, like somebody might say, okay, they kind of scare me. I think that patriotism is a mental disease. And Nate, you have some of your friends who would say that militia types or whatever, that they think that it's a mental disease. We actually had a IRS commissioner that used terms like patriot and things like that to go after people's tax returns. So let's take their guns away, and then we'll just keep going and going and going. Now, I'm not in support. Obviously, I think there is a very real problem, but I think it needs to be in reporting, and we need to explore mental health issues. I'm sorry.
Well, so my approach it's funny. In principle, I do agree with you. I think as soon as you start saying we're going to just take these people's guns for, for kind of this arbitrary reason, I think you start getting into problems. But I also think on the flip side, I think it's a lot more layered, because I would agree if someone has mental health issues or a mental health issue, it may not be best for them to get a firearm, right? And I think most of these mass shootings are committed with people who are mentally ill, right? And access to guns, they'll finally get their gun. But now it depends on what type of mental illness, or essentially what type of mental illness are we going to be screening for. So I think someone being trans alone doesn't mean they have a mental illness. That just, that it's just not, just prescriptive. This is your mental illness, you can't have a gun. I think I just need more than that. If they were trans but had suicidal ideologies or something like that, forgot that word, it's a bad word, but something like that, then maybe you can make that claim. Just like if you happen to be a white guy or a black guy, and you are suffering from some mental health condition, I think it would have to be attached to showing a propensity for violence to do something like this. So I understand where that's coming from, because I think that's surprisingly what the left has always been championing, right? We should have mental health screenings for people who want firearms. We should do this. We should do this. Now,
but then, how do you apply that? And
but
that's
then
the problem too. It's like, okay, so you're a gun shop owner, Nate. I walk in and I buy a gun. I want to buy a gun. Okay, so what are you going to do? You're going to give me a questionnaire? Are you trained to check out my mental? Where's the screening going to take place? What kind of screening is going to be? How deep is it really going to be, to find out if there's deep-seated things? I could get mad tomorrow with my wife, and it just gets kind of bonkers.
Of course. I'm saying if you're going to start, because again, the left has been screaming, we want this type of background check and this type of psychological evaluation for gun owners, right? That's been their calling card, right? This is the type of gun reform they've been pushing for the past 20 years. So essentially they're throwing that in their face and saying, well, hey, this gender dysphoria is an issue. We've had two, and let's just be clear, two or three or however many mass shootings by trans people. It's like at the bottom of the bottom, right? This is the overwhelming majority of mass shootings are done by white males. And then it goes down the line. You have Chinese and all, and so forth and so forth. So in that instance, I don't think you could ever have a thing where we're going to take all guns from white males, because being a white male is a mental disease. And I think
your friends think it is.
but I think transgender people who are transgender are going to think the same way, that hey, just because I'm transgender doesn't mean I have these tendencies to be violent or anything like that, and I should have all of my rights. So I do think you're right. It's slippery. So, and I'm presumptive. Yeah, I'm against it now. But if they could flush it out a little bit more and tell me what they're talking about, and this policy can apply to everyone, not just people who are trans, then I would be more for it. But again, I'd like to see how it pops up, because if you're trans, then we're going to look for your mental health. I think that's discriminatory instead of helpful, if you know what I mean.
Well, and also, there's a lot of things that we think are of use, and I feel like the facts often prove otherwise. Like, I watch way too much true crime sometimes, things like that, right? What is one of the markers that a spouse might get killed?
One of the markers what are you talking about, like domestic violence?
Yeah.
That's generally the trigger.
No, you know what? Often the trigger is that leads to the worst result is a restraining order.
Yes.
And it is so sad. There are so many cases that restraining order tips it to the ultimate fate sometimes. Nobody intends for that to happen. Obviously, the restraining order's whole purpose is to keep them safe, but often it has the reverse effect. And I think we need to actually explore what is going on, if you will, and we need to up the responsibility, maybe with the doctors or whatever. Like, there was a time with the trans surgeries, I don't know if it's still the case, but they had to go through like a long time before they could even be allowed to transition. a lot of therapy, a lot of explorations and things like that. Now, while that's happening, can we note whether they're violent or not? Or if they show a propensity for that, and other groups too, like going back to the veterans, if they're seeking help with PTSD, are they violent or not? I don't know. But even with all of that, Nate, do they know somebody who has a gun? Because I bet you know somebody who has a gun. I bet you could go break into their house, you could take the gun, and you could shoot somebody. Let's go to the Chicago stats. How many people do you think have a registered gun in these shootings in Chicago? Let's be honest.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true.
And all over the country. So,
and it shows you how great their gun laws are, because everybody has a gun.
The more ironically, yes, you're right. The more restrictive the gun laws, often the more gun violence.
Hold on, this guy just said, "What? Have you ever heard, Nate? Where's it coming from? I have never heard of a Chinese mass shooter." Oh, I'm sorry. There was just one that just
Virginia Tech, wasn't he Asian?
Yeah, Virginia Tech was Asian. Well, here's one if you want. I think I have one pulled up. Where's the one that's pulled?
I don't know though. When I'm saying Asian, I don't know if he's Chinese. So I want to.
Yeah, and I would say
South
Asian.
Korean. Sorry, South Korean.
Yeah, South Korean. Here's one that just happened this year on the 25th. 18, at least 18 dead in 3 days after mass shooting in California, and this is the shooter. So I don't think where's he from? He's from the area. So there's Asian. So I should have just been more specific, but Asian mass shooters. So yeah. So this is not just. Just because you haven't heard of it doesn't mean that it happened.
But they are rare.
They
Chinese, as a matter of fact, I did just look it up. In 1994, there was a Chinese mass shooter.
Yeah, I should have said Asian
in China. I hate. You know what? I even hate the term Asian, because if you're in England, Asian means Pakistani, Indian. That's when they say Asian. Mm-hmm. When we say Asian, we think people in China. We think Far East. They think Middle East. Anyway, just all of that gets really, really confusing.
Yeah. But I think we could say we need more information on it. I have to see how the policy plays out. But I am concerned just targeting one group of people. Like we're going to target just trans people.
They're clarifying.
I think that's a little tough. Go ahead.
Kingslayer here was bringing up a good point, though. It's not whites are the majority of mass shootings. It's the majority of school shootings. It's a majority of workplace shootings. That is true.
Okay, that's
as
true.
a matter of fact,
It's
ironically,
Chicago.
you're right.
Chicago,
You could
yeah.
almost qualify
Chicago.
and say white perpetrator style shootings are what we report as a mass shooting. So I thank you, Kingslayer. I think
That's a good point, Kingslayer.
Very, very valid point.
Yeah. So I don't know. So I think we both can agree that this is, the slippery slope argument, and I'd rather let people exercise their rights and force the government to take. If you're going to remove those rights, it has to be through due process.
You see, I'm a psycho. I'd be like, if everybody has a gun, it's going to slow down.
Yeah,
because a perpetrator probably is not going to survive very long, or they're going to be too busy ducking because they're being fired upon themselves.
Yeah.
So
are we moving to Epstein? Because we got
why not? We'll finish out with the cheerful subject of the missing minute, and I do have that. Okay, the missing minute. I don't know how else to say it, but this missing minute, in my opinion, makes Pam Bondi a liar.
Well, let's go back and explain.
Well, I was going to
set it up. Yeah. All right.
Okay. When they released the footage of the only working camera there's 5 cameras available in the SHU, that's the special housing unit where Epstein was kept. It's like a wing of the prison. They have different ones in the area. There are 5 available cameras. 4 of them were broken, but coincidentally, apparently, one was working the one that did not actually have an angle to see anything. Every other camera that kind of covered the area that included the stairs or in front of Epstein's cell, all broken, but they did come up with one camera that was working in the area. And Pam Bondi talked about it, Dan Bongino talked about it, Kash Patel talked about this footage that they released that would prove absolutely that Epstein took his own life. Could not have been killed. Nobody could have gone there. This proved it. Video evidence. And then Bongino went further and he said, we're going to release it raw and we're going to mess with it or anything because we don't want any questions. So we're just going to release it raw so everybody can look at it. And then they released some footage. Now, the footage that they released, and if I'm misleading or anything, Nate, jump in.
Yeah, I'm definitely will.
The footage they released had problems from the jump. And they were that they covered from in the evening all the way to the next morning. But people who were going through the footage, they said, wait a minute.
Sorry.
There is a minute missing from this footage. And it's right around 11:59 to midnight-ish time frame. Okay, there was a minute missing. Now, not only was there a minute missing, but if you're watching the footage, you'll see where the camera is cropped and framed. There's a certain perspective or angle. And then when it picks up after the minute, the angle is it's a different cropping. It's like it zoomed in just a little tiny bit. So it's not framed exactly. And to address this problem, Pam Bondi, in a cabinet meeting, stated that this happens every night. It's because these cameras were pre-Y2K, and people might not remember, but in Y2K, there's a problem with the date and the time. So in order to keep the cameras up, they restart every day right around midnight for about a minute.
So let me play that clip because I have that clip on the ready.
Okay.
This is Pam Bondi saying exactly what Eric said.
I can't hear it, but
oh, sorry. Oh yeah, it's good. Sorry. There it is. Oh no.
Bureau of Prisons
There it is.
was every year, every night.
Limit to a nightly reset of the security camera system.
There was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every year, every night, they redo that video. It's old from like 1999. So every night the video is reset and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night.
That additional.
Okay. Good. And this minute, the other footage that, she said, we're looking at other footage to confirm it and show, hey, it happens all the time, blah, 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 blah. They never released any footage, anything else until a couple days ago. All of a sudden, they didn't release the other footage showing a missing minute. They released the missing minute, which means that what she was saying, and I'm not going to say it's hers, but between her and the Bureau of Prisons, that is a lie. Yeah. It is proven demonstrably to be a lie, because if the camera in fact was restarting, there can't be a minute to discover.
So either the camera, the restarting of the camera is a lie, or the missing minute is just made up.
Right. Yeah. And while we're talking, because it's pretty boring overall, I got to get you to undo your share so I can.
Oh, I'll undo it. Sorry, undo it. Got it.
Okay. Here is the minute while we're talking about it that has been released, so everybody can look at their leisure. It's about 1 minute and 7 seconds. Is this playing? Okay. Going so dang slow.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah, it looks like somebody at the desk, but anyway, this is a problem. Now, other issues that came up were the metadata in the footage that was released showed that the footage was not raw. As I said, it had actually been pushed through different editing programs like Adobe Premiere and other things before publication. And there was another spot in the video that you could see the cursor of a mouse moving around. Now, I have defended this to a degree, but I'm still blaming them. Okay, I'm seeing somebody walk off right here. Anyway, I've worked with a DVR system with surveillance cameras, and not all these systems have a compatible format for the video. And in order to actually publish it, they have to screenshot it on the computer in order to put it out. Now, if they just said that, that would probably be super, super helpful, but they did not say that. And again, that's why I have a feeling that the two parts were there or whatever, but it's a problem. Now, this part right here, that is curious. The person walked away from the desk and they were walking. Now, did that person walk upstairs?
You can't see the
Did
stairs.
they leave? Because there was another part of the video. They were like, hey, this person just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
How did they come out of nowhere? Well, now I guess it wasn't nowhere. I guess they were coming back from over here. But every single part of this is a giant problem, in my opinion. And I don't know. No, I don't know which way to go about it. One last point. I'm interviewing somebody, I don't have the book here, who wrote a book called Blowback. And the basic premise that starts the book out is somebody right after the Oklahoma City bombing, I believe it's 1996.
Mhm.
This or 95, I'll have to look. But anyway, this person, it was a bank robber, had gotten out of prison, was on parole, etc., was crossing in from Mexico to the United States, had a Mexican wife, and was crossing into the States, Mexico to California border.
Mhm.
They were picked up at the border for a parole violation and suddenly moved to Oklahoma. Yeah, it was 1995. Thank you, Brian Morgan. Okay, suddenly they moved to Oklahoma. And then in Oklahoma, within a couple days, they're dead in their cell. That's weird. Why are you dead in a cell? The cell was in what they call a special housing unit. Sound familiar? Epstein was in a special housing unit. Huh. Well, the family got a phone call from the Bureau of Prisons saying, hey, we'll go ahead and do a free cremation and send the remains to you. Is that all right? Blah, blah, blah. And the family said, whoa, what? Why did they die? No, I don't want you to do that. I want you to return our loved one's body to us. So they returned the body to them. And of course, the body was, dressed up, full makeup, everything else to, prepare them for an open casket funeral. The family took it upon themselves, and I can't imagine what this took to do it, but they washed off all of the makeup, and they found bruising all over the hands, the face, a slice in the neck from somebody who self-deleted. Sounding familiar? So they're like, what in the hell's going on here? Where I'm going with this long-winded story is apparently the cameras were broken that day in 1995. Now, I'll tell the rest, a little bit of it for those who are interested, is promoting an interview coming up, but there was somebody called John Doe number 2. They were looking for the Oklahoma City bombing. John Doe number 1 was Timothy McVeigh. John Doe number 2 was somebody who was a short person with a solid build and a dragon tattoo on his forearm. The individual who got picked up and died was about 5'6" to 5'8". He was not tall. He had a stocky build and a dragon tattoo on the forearm. Wonder why they were interested. So anyway, all of this is, That was 1995. Epstein is 2019. Are we just seeing a repeat?
Well, success breeds repetition, right? Because this Epstein stuff, obviously. Number one, I'm going to say this, and I know the MAGA crowd's going to hate me for it. Pam Bondi needs to go, people. She should be gone like yesterday. We literally have her lying on camera multiple times. The list is on my desk, all the evidence. There's no list, there's no evidence. Then they're releasing evidence, they're releasing a list. Then it's like, well, there's no camera. Oh, the camera works. There's the minute missing. It's always missing. Been missing for years. I'll prove to you it's always been missing. Now, oh, guess what? We found the missing minute that we said is impossible to be there because the camera's reset. But now all of a sudden the impossible minute is there. Here it is. Trust us. This is what it is. I don't trust anything about Pam Bondi. She needs to go, and Trump needs to get somebody in there competent, because even if they're trying to cover it up, you can do it better than this, because she needs to be on board before she comes out and says something stupid. Because right now, don't nobody believe Pam Bondi. She can come out and say anything. Nobody believes Pam Bondi, period.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Maybe you'd believe her. I don't know.
No, I mean, and you know what? And in fairness, it doesn't matter, because there's a certain point where optics are all that count. So even if, as the Bureau of Prisons set her up, she has such a propensity and a record now that nobody can believe her. So whether it's fair, not fair, or anything else, the optics are horrible. And we have to have faith in the Department of Justice. If nobody has faith in the DOJ, then it is not as effective as a law enforcement entity, in my opinion.
No. Well, we also do have this now. James O'Keefe, formerly of Project Veritas, even though you're going to see him standing in front of everything that says Project Veritas. It's now called the O'Keefe.
Okay, yeah, and he's going to buy Veritas possibly, but yeah. What is it? Okay, OMG.
Yeah.
Oh my God! No, O'Keefe Media Group, which is a clever title. Whatever.
So he allegedly is undercover.
Pepperoni.
He's essentially undercover, and he's they're speaking to a DOJ official. I think this guy still was working there at the time, but recently left, something like that. But
he's going
to explain it. So listen to this again, supposedly bombshell interview that James O'Keefe. Now, just for everybody who's Project Veritas, those were the people who did the undercover stuff for the abortion. Remember the abortion stuff? Who had the undercover cameras and all that stuff? Those are the same people who did that. So here is. Let me remove the other thing.
I got it out.
Add this to stage. So here we go. This is DOJ. Oops, I think I have it muted.
Still muted, buddy.
Oh, sorry, I muted inside. Sorry. There we go. Oops, there it is. Oh, it's just a stupid. I think they want to stop. Here it is.
Yeah, thousands and thousands of pages of files. They'll redact every Republican or conservative person in those files, leave all the liberal Democratic people in those files.
I think they visited that Maxwell person.
Yeah.
And also involved.
Got transferred to a minimum security prison too recently, which is against BOP policy because she's a convicted sex offender. They're offering her something to keep her mouth shut.
That was the acting deputy chief of the Office of Enforcement Operations, Joseph Schnitt, telling a stranger about the FBI and DOJ's handling of the Epstein files. Schnitt, who works at a high level inside the Department of Justice, goes on to comment on the inconsistent statements, special treatment of Ghislaine Maxwell, and the blatant backtracking on promises of transparency.
And what do you do for work again?
I work for the Department of Justice.
Okay.
Been there like 23 years. I'm an analyst. I'll be acting deputy chief of our office for a few months.
I think this guy's not going to be working here for 2 months longer.
Probably not. I know that they did release a statement back saying that he had nothing to do with anything and didn't have visibility. But
he is the acting deputy chief of enforcement. But again, he has more to say. So.
Oh, sorry.
Starting next week, I work closely with like all the federal law enforcement agencies and the U.S. attorney's offices, the prosecutors and stuff. The thing is, it's interesting because I do deal with so many of the agencies, like the Bureau of Prisons, the Marshal Service, the FBI, U.S. attorney's offices.
Recently, the FBI and DOJ have come under fire for promising transparency, then refusing to release footage and unredacted documents, going directly against the public's expectations and the promises made by Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel. In a DOJ press release, Attorney General Pam Bondi stated, quote, "This Department of Justice is following through on President Trump's commitment to transparency and lifting the veil on the disgusting actions of Jeffrey Epstein and his co-conspirators," unquote, and also claimed they were shedding light on Epstein's extensive network, only to later claim that Epstein was acting alone, and that the only video evidence they had was of Epstein's personal child porn collection.
Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn
All right, we got all this.
downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein.
Let's see, going moving forward. So he's doing the thing, but there's a part in here. He's doing the gold thing. There's a part in here. Okay, so about Ghislaine Maxwell. So the part. No, you know what? We don't even do
Just
this.
talk about it. We
So
don't
yeah.
have,
So one of the parts inside here, because obviously they're saying that there's more, but one of the things that James O'Keefe also points out, and this guy also points out, is that by federal law, if you're convicted of sex trafficking, you can't go to a minimum security prison. And a minimum security is essentially like Club Fed. That's where your Martha Stewarts go. They play tennis. You know,
Elizabeth Holmes is there.
Yeah,
literally.
Club
the Theranos chick.
Exactly. That's minimum security. It's more like it's a dormitory style. You can have things in your cell and stuff. But when you talk, but minimum, so that's but then as a sex offender, the law essentially states that you could only be in low security. So here's the difference between low security and minimum security. So low security is essentially you're still in a prison and still a prison environment, where minimum security you're
looks like a dorm room.
Essentially that's what it is. You have a toilet. It's the same thing, but it's minimum. It's a minimum security. Low problem if you escape and all that stuff. So that's what she was moved to, essentially minimum security in the dormitory. So the argument here is, again, this is against the law. The law says you can only be in low security because you're a sex offender. They put her in minimum security. So they're saying, is this now reward for not only keeping your mouth shut, but saying what we need you to say? Because don't think she had those proffers. Because remember, after she gave the proffer and talked to the DOJ, she's moved illegally from a low security prison to a minimum security prison.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to circle back to what I've been saying before. None of it matters. The optics are shit. I'm serious. It's like, I think that the Trump administration has dropped the ball so hard that there's no way. They boxed themselves in the worst corners imaginable. The DOJ has dropped the ball. So it's a disaster.
And for those of you who want to see the actual law, inmate, security, designated custody, sex offender, male or female, blah, 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 housed in at least a low security level institution, not minimum. So, they're obviously, there's obviously more here, but, we may never know.
Now, is that a law or a policy? Because that is
I think the law was thing, but here is the,
because policy and law, there is a difference.
That's true. I believe this is the law, but again, I'll look it up because it may be policy. But here also,
it still looks bad.
Here is the let me pull this up. This is the sentencing thing. So security point total 0 from 15. Deportable alien, juvenile. So this tells you who can go where, right? Serious escape risk, obviously, but sex offender, it's always low. So again,
I understand that, but what is that again? Is that policy or is it law? There is a difference.
Yes, I believe this may be policy, not law, but I'll look into it because I remember I believe he was saying this was a executive order, so it would technically be policy, but I'll look it up though.
Okay.
I should have looked it up before I came. But yeah, but even let's go with the assumption of the lower end. This is policy.
Even with policy, it looks bad. I'm not questioning that.
Policy because she would be one of the few blank offenders
right
in a minimum security prison versus the low security prison where she's spending her time.
Right. Well, and again, like I said, it looks bad either way it goes, but there is a significant difference. She's probably not the only one who has gotten a little sweetheart thing. If they have the right information at the right time, I'm sure that other deals have been padded. But again, it still looks awful.
Yeah, it still looks.
Everything about it looks awful. I don't, I hate talking about it because it just looks like trash. I have no defense. It's like the missing minute. Why did you even release anything? They would have been better off just saying all the cameras were down. Sorry, we don't have it.
And then, then why release those 30,000 documents of the same thing you've already released before too?
Again, it's like, look over here. I mean, it is a distraction, and I'm going to piss everybody off. Changing the name of the Department of Defense to Department of War is a distraction. It doesn't really help anything. So I don't know.
But again, I got to ask you, Eric, straight up, what's the motive here? There's got to be a motive to keep it secret. After years and years of saying we're going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
What's the motive of them not releasing it as they said they would many times?
Well, part of it, I think, is the deal that was made with Epstein and the co-conspirators.
Yeah, because they have just so everybody understands, the government made a deal with Epstein that's being challenged at the Supreme Court that none of his co-conspirators, none of the people who he did
named or unnamed
crimes with, named or unnamed, can be prosecuted in the United States. So he signed that deal, and that's what Ghislaine Maxwell is appealing, saying that she was covered by that deal. Now, the federal judge in Ghislaine Maxwell's case said she is covered by that deal, but she's only covered in the district of Florida.
Another district.
The federal district of Florida, not the district of New York, which she was prosecuted. And that's how they overcame it with Epstein, too. They said Epstein was only covered in Florida, not in,
So I think you and I both agree is bullshit.
It is, because it's one federal government. So people understand. If I was in the state of New York, right? If the state of New York is what they call a separate sovereign. So the state of New York can prosecute Ghislaine Maxwell for essentially similar crimes that occurred in New York. And the federal government is one sovereign. So if you commit a crime in California and you're prosecuted there, that essentially it encompasses the entire federal government. So there's what's known as a split in the courts. The courts are looking at this two differently. The courts say, well, if the federal government prosecutes you in Florida and makes a deal with you in Florida, any deals are only good in Florida. But
bullshit. It's the federal government.
It's the federal government.
Federal government.
But
it's like I only have Social Security for Virginia.
Yes.
Come on.
Yes. But the majority of circuits of courts say that, hey, if the federal government makes a deal with you in Florida, that deal is good nationwide. So that's
as it should be.
Circuits, that's what
who are you making the deal with? With the Department of Justice?
You're at the Department of Justice.
Is there a New York Attorney General and a California Attorney General? No, there's one Attorney General, one federal government, one president. It's irritating. I'm not into that thing. And by the way, I think Ghislaine Maxwell's a monster.
Yeah,
I have no sympathy for her, but I think that she has a legitimate case.
And it makes me laugh because a lot of people saying that she essentially she said Trump wasn't involved and she said Clinton wasn't involved, right? It was like the two of the Trump and Clinton weren't involved. So and I would say this to a lot of people who said, hey, listen, this is 100% proof that Trump wasn't involved. There's 100% proof Clinton didn't do whatever do. And I'm just going to be honest with you people. She's a convicted blank offender of children who is wanting to get out of prison. Do you think she's going to say whatever she needs to say to get out of the dormitory prison and go to Club Fed? If she says, hey, he was a gentleman. Hey, this doesn't happen. Hey, I don't know nothing. Let's just be clear. There are hundreds, not just 10 or 15. There are hundreds of alleged victims. So I'm just saying, I don't trust her as far as I can throw it. She may just be, but I want to be honest, she could be telling the absolute truth about Trump. But I wouldn't bet on it. I don't find it credible. It's just because of the source of where the information is coming from.
All right. Well, fair enough.
All right. So let's tie up. Well,
I think that's going to wrap it on the day, folks. hope you enjoyed it. This is something we haven't done for a while, the old Nate and Eric deal, but we wanted to have a show today. It's a struggle on Fridays, but let us know. Please comment below especially if you're on the replay crew, or even if you've been sitting here, please comment below. It does help a lot with the algorithm and things like that. Do you like this? You want to see Nate and I do more stuff? No? Tell us to shut up. Please let us know. I always have a great time with Nate. In fairness, Nate and I talk almost every day on the phone, and they can go on for a while. I get in trouble with my wife because Nate's my significant other. So a lot of this is not that dissimilar to what we do on our own anyway.
Yeah.
But let us know.
You know what? A lot of people have problems with where we're searching for the truth. And that's generally what it is. And there'll be a lot of times where we all come to our preconceived notions that we want, because we want to know what's actually happening. So we like to do is not go into conversations giving opinions that are uninformed. We can give an uninformed opinion, but then we try to find the information to see if it's accurate. And that's what I think most of you enjoy about our conversations, and most of you enjoy even about my own videos, is that it's a search for the truth, not telling you what the truth is. And come join us on that journey. Let us know how you feel about everything in the comments section. If you think we're crazy about the whole Chicago mayor saying we're down 2,000 officers, it's a crisis, but I don't want the federal government to give me 5,000 more officers and pay for 5,000 more officers. That won't help. Remember that won't even help. Are we crazy or what?
Well, and while you're here, go ahead and please consider subscribing. You made it to the end. It's an hour and 51 minutes. It can't be that bad. And if it's not Nate and I, it's a panel. Normally it's a panel every week. Consider subscribing. Appreciate it. And we'll see you in the next episode.